Hey everyone, let's jump right into this. Today, we are looking at an incredibly fascinating system called Akrmna Bank. But right off the bat, I want you to forget everything you think you know about traditional financial institutions. We aren't talking about checking accounts and loans today. Based on our source material, Akrmna Bank isn't just a bank, it's a universal work engine designed to fundamentally break the very concept of unemployment. It's a system built to give everybody an opportunity to work and provide service as much as they need and want.
Here is our roadmap for today's explainer. We're going to start with the unemployment problem, look at how we break those barriers, explain the Karam economy, calculate fair compensation, go over worker justice, and finally, look at a true universal work engine.
I want to start off with a thought experiment. Think about this for a second. What if unemployment wasn't a lack of work, but a wall of gatekeepers? We so often treat unemployment as a personal failure, or just a simple lack of jobs in the market. But our sources challenge this premise entirely. They argue that the work is always there, but the systems built to access it are profoundly broken. Kicking things off with Section 1, the unemployment problem, and specifically, that wall of gatekeepers. I really want us to pause and think about underprivileged job seekers worldwide. Unemployment exists because our traditional economies are built on these exact constraints. There are arbitrarily limited job positions. You've got HR gatekeepers, incredibly slow hiring cycles, and degree requirements that inherently lock out folks who just don't have the capital to afford higher education. Then you have geographic limitations. Literally, where you were born dictates what you can earn. And ultimately, you have companies arbitrarily deciding who deserves the dignity of work. It creates an impenetrable wall for millions of people.
So how do we fix it? Let's move to Section 2, breaking traditional barriers by removing permission-based work.
The contrast here is literally day and night. The old world relies on limited jobs, borders, and degrees. But in the architecture of Akrmna Bank, you don't need a company to hire you. You don't need a CV, you don't need a degree, and most importantly, you do not need permission. There are no HR rejections, no visa requirements, and no background discrimination. It operates on a beautifully simple premise. If you can provide a service, whether that's cleaning, coding, tutoring, or repairs, you can earn immediately. For an underprivileged worker in a developing nation, this means the geographic lottery of birth no longer blocks them from earning. Anyone can request a service, which automatically creates infinite demand.
And because there are no gatekeepers, there are absolutely no limits. If someone wants to work 2 hours a week, 20 hours, or 200 hours, they can. The system never blocks them. There are no monthly caps or employer dependencies. Furthermore, the platform features this multi-user allocation system, where a company could theoretically hire one person or 1,000 people and pay them all in one single click. It transforms the whole concept from a simple gig app into a massive, borderless global payroll engine.
Okay, so how does this actually function without devolving into chaos? Let's dive into Section 3, the Karam economy explained, focusing on a currency based strictly on service.
The absolutely crucial point is understanding the currency that powers the whole thing, the Karam Service Bond, or KSB. This isn't just digital money. It's an alternative to national currencies with a very strict core value. It is based entirely on fair service compensation. The absolute cornerstone of this architecture is a creation constraint. The system fundamentally prevents the creation of Karam except through verified service. You can't just conjure it out of thin air. It literally must represent actual human labor and service.
10,000. That number right there is the heartbeat of the global equilibrium within Akrmna Bank. The system sets a standard where 10,000 Karam equals the basic monthly living expenses of the user's specific country. This is huge because it anchors the digital currency to real-world survival and dignity. It ensures that compensation is always meaningful relative to where the worker actually lives.
Now this is where it brilliantly bridges the digital divide. Specifically for underprivileged populations who might not have constant access to smartphones or digital banking, users with a positive balance can actually generate and print a physical Karam service bond. This physical document can then be handed over to buy goods or services entirely outside the digital system. The receiver simply enters the bond's uniquely encrypted hash into their own account to redeem the value. It so elegantly makes the digital economy tangible and accessible to absolutely everyone. Let's look at how we actually ensure people are paid fairly in Section 4, calculating fair compensation. In traditional markets, employers often dictate wages based on how little someone is willing to accept. It's a race to the bottom. Akrmna replaces that with structural math. When someone requests a custom service, they must define a hardship tier up front. Easy correlates to the 10,000 standard, medium is 20,000, and hard is 30,000. This acknowledges that not all labor takes the same toll on the human body or mind.
Once that hardship tier is set, the system uses this exact formula to guarantee fair pay. It takes the hardship level, divided by 80, multiplies it by the actual working hours, and adds any material costs. And here's a massively important detail. Those actual working hours are defined upfront by the requester. There is no live timing counter ticking away to pressure the worker. This system enforces fair pricing, which means there is absolutely zero room for underpayment, exploitation, or wage theft. It creates a genuinely fair labor market.
Of course, an economic engine is only as good as its protections. That brings us to Section 5, Worker Protection and Justice.
So how does a vulnerable worker actually secure their payment? It follows a very strict workflow. First, the requester defines the hours and hardship upfront. Second, before starting, the service provider has to present a physical national ID or passport to the requester to establish clear identity. Then, they complete the service. Third, the requester hits a manual trigger to confirm fulfillment and release the digital funds. But you might be wondering, what happens if the requester just refuses to pay?
Well, this is where the platform's assigned judicial system steps in. If a dispute is reported, it triggers a review by a human judge. And importantly, users cannot just pick a judge who might be friendly to them. They are assigned by the admin panel. If a requester disappears or refuses to confirm valid work, the judge can authorize the system to directly deduct the funds from the non-payer's account. And if a user commits fraud and falls into a negative balance, they have to clear that debt through actual verified service. It actively, completely eliminates unpaid invoices and delayed payments.
Zooming out to the macroeconomic level, the system makes sure it operates harmoniously within national structures too. There's a transparent 20% monthly tax on the platform, split between a platform service fee and a national fund. The allocations to government funds are required to be publicly visible, ensuring total transparency and collaboration with existing state infrastructures.
Let's pull all of this together in our final section, a universal work engine.
As our sources explicitly point out, Akrmna is not just some gig app, it's a universal work engine. It supports freelancers, traditional 9-to-5 employees, entire teams, and companies. It handles complex multi-user allocations for shareholders splitting business profits. It works for delivery drivers, developers, teachers, creators, literally anyone. Because there are no gatekeepers, no one is left behind. It truly bridges the gap between massive corporate infrastructures and the everyday, underprivileged worker who is just looking for a fair chance.
And the whole system remains stable through some really smart, equitable liquidity rules. When users want to exchange their Akrmna for fiat currency, they draw from what is called the Public Exchange Budget, or PEB. To prevent a run on the bank and ensure fairness, the withdrawal limits are mathematically equitable. It's simply the user's percentage of global Akrmna multiplied by the available PEB. Everyone gets fair access to liquidity based on their exact proportion of service.
I want to read this quote from the source material because it really hits the nail on the head. You didn't build a bank, you built a global employment system powered by fairness, transparency, and service. It creates a world where anyone can participate, and the historic barriers that have kept underprivileged populations from earning a living are systematically dismantled. So I want to leave you with this thought. In a world where anyone can serve and earn without permission, without gatekeepers, without those arbitrary limits, what barrier will you break first? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep learning, keep questioning the systems around you, and I will see you next time.